Did you know that 79% of millionaires did not inherit their wealth? They built it themselves through smart decisions, investing, and that's exactly what we're going to be looking at in this video. Now, this challenges the common belief that most people just come from wealth, and that is how wealth is generated. But when we start thinking about breaking down how wealth is generated, what habits and what really mindset do you have to do this? So let's get into this. Number one, building financial resilience. This is one where it starts with an emergency fund. This is the basics when it comes to financial education and counseling. Building the emergency fund and having this will keep you from having to borrow money. It is super imperative, super important that you have that emergency fund set aside because it's going to keep you from going right back to credit cards. Now, we are looking for 3 to 6 months of your expenses. This is not of your salary, this is of the expenses in general. Once you have that set aside, we are going to be putting it into a high yield savings account. This isn't something that you're going to leave just at your financial institution. You want to be making in high yield savings accounts roughly about 4% as it sits today. Very easy access. You don't want to lock it up in case that emergency comes. Now, to do this, you can automate and really putting money aside every single paycheck, whether it's $10, $20, $50, $100, whatever it is to hit that goal of that 3 to 6 months. And when we think of 3 to 6 months, that is kind of a big kind of segue. When and how should it be 3 months? How should it be 6 months? When you start looking at this, it is going to be dependent on a couple different things, including do you only have one household income or are they two? Are you and your spouse, your significant other, anyone else in the household able to generate income, which can supplement if you lose your income yourself? Now, when you start thinking about this as well, the 3 to 6 months, also what industry are you in? Is it very sales orientated? Is it very hazardous? Could there be an accident that could disable you or permanently disable you when it comes to work? This, of course, when we think of the separation of funds, we're thinking about health emergencies. We're talking about job loss. We're talking about emergency home repairs. There's a lot of things you should be planning for when you own a home, or if there's an emergency. Setting aside this is going to make a big difference. Now, also debt management. When it comes to debt management, the more debt you take on, the more interest you're going to have, the more interest that you pay. That is taking away from your power to repay debt, to save money, to invest money, to build that emergency fund. Debt is going to crush you. I see it on a daily basis working in a financial institution. Debt is super hard, especially when it comes to high interest debt. We are talking about credit cards. I have seen credit cards ranging from 6, 7% all the way up to 35, 36, 37%, which is incredibly difficult to get out of when the balances start getting a little bit higher. To really combat this, consider refinancing consolidation loans, going to a lower rate, possibly doing a balance transfer, or really coming up with a plan on how you're going to adjust your spending to not get right back into credit card debt, which is what we see, and also avoiding necessary or really unnecessary new debt. A lot of people will overbuy, a lot of people will continue to run up debt instead of on the other side focusing on the elimination of debt or paying down those debt obligations, making sure you're making payments well above the minimum every single month without accumulating debt. Now, this can also come with lifestyle control. There's not a point where I do not talk about budgeting. Budgeting is the fundamental when it comes to financial education. If right back here you ever want to have the debt-free journey, if you want to live that life, it is going to come with the elimination of debt. Now, whether you're old school using pen and paper, if you're doing it on a budgeting app, there are so many different places where you can cut your spending and really eliminate some memberships, eliminate some subscriptions, cutting back on things that you need to. But a lot of people don't know the things they're spending their money on. There are really two types of people, and I've heard this before. One type of person is you get paid, you pay all of your bills, you wonder what you're going to have left exactly with that last bucket, what you're going to use the extra money for. Or there's the individuals that get paid, spend and really do everything with their expenses and wonder where all their money went and have no clue exactly where it went. This also relies on paying and really planning for major purchases. There was a point in time where people saved up money for a down payment of a car, down payment on a house, or even looking on a major appliance purchase, let's say a couple $1,000s for maybe a new stove, a new refrigerator, anything like that. Major purchases include home repairs as well. When you think about windows, a furnace, a roof, there's going to be a point in time if you are a homeowner that you're going to have to build them. Now, number two, maximizing your retirement contributions. This is looking at 401k and IRA contributions, contributing and really making contributions up to that full employer match as an absolute minimum. If you're over the age of 50, doing your catch up contributions so you can make sure that you're saving extra money. Now, also rebalancing. And again, some people say keeping a solid investment mix. Me personally, I like higher risk and I will keep higher risk all the way going into retirement, even through retirement, because I know the benefit of the growth factor it's in there. And I know there's been a lot of studies as of recently about growing your portfolio during retirement versus moving it to something like cash or moving it into bonds, where you're going to get a very, very low return for an extended amount of time. If you're like me, retiring at the age of 55, I might have 20, 30 years until I pass away. I want that 20 or 30 years of growth during that period to just keep growing as I'm entering those retirement ages. And of course, looking at retirement benefits, thinking of, do you have a retirement plan? What does it look like? Are you going to get a pension? What stock options are offered? How are you saving? How are you going to pay for things, including medical expenses? Do you have the opportunity today to contribute to an HSA, a high deductible healthcare plan? What better options do you have, and how are you going to supplement Social Security as it sits today? They say Social Security replaces roughly 30 to 40% of your income, which is kind of crazy because retirees are dependent on about 80 to 90% depending on your quality of life. So where are you going to get that extra 40 or 50% of the income to supplement what you're not getting during Social Security? And number three, we get into diversifying the investments. This is the strong portfolio. When we start thinking of stocks, bonds, real estate, alternative investments, looking at cryptocurrency, looking at gold, making sure you know your risk exposure and exactly where you are. Me personally, I do a 3 ETF portfolio, which I have some videos that you can absolutely check out. And that is it. My risk, I am happy with. I am diversified. I am set and really set up to get a lot of dividends that are reinvested currently that I can actually turn on as the supplement for that Social Security. Looking at the capital gains, being able to accelerate my growth in the portfolio. And of course, passive income. We are talking about dividend stocks, rental properties, REITs, low cost index funds are the only thing that I invest in, and only in ETFs. I do not buy mutual funds. I feel like the fees and the management is not really there when it comes to the returns. I also do not buy individual stocks or rental properties, real estate. However, I will own REITs, but I will not own the real estate itself. I do not want to be a landlord. I don't want to worry about the liability. And of course, looking at cryptocurrency or private equity, make sure you do your research in any of these buckets because it is going to be important. So number four, we get into managing estate planning. When you start looking at protecting all the wealth that you've grown and you've generated through retirement and leading up to retirement, making sure you have wills, trust, power of attorney. If there's any life changes, you know exactly what you're doing. Insurance policies are up to date. Bank accounts have beneficiaries on there. Your retirement plans, again, beneficiaries on there. And knowing if you have a trust that you have an executor on that trust, that is going to handle all of your financial needs if anything should happen. And exactly what is the tax and the wealth transfer strategy if you're leaving money like I am to my kids, understanding the estate tax law. Now you can do this yourself with a lot of research, a lot of time and effort, or you can look at people who professionally specialize in it, even looking at setting up trusts for your children or dependents if they're not of legal age right now. Number five, we get into college expenses. If you have children, preparing for educational expenses is absolutely crucial. And when we start thinking of this bucket, there are a lot of tax advantages, which I know we have state tax advantages here for the MESP program where we are in Michigan that you can take full advantage of, but also looking at financial aid, grants, scholarships, anything that you can do to replace or reduce that out-of-pocket expense is going to be huge. Tuition reimbursement benefits if you have an employer or are an employee. I'm making sure, again, that you're taking full benefits of the benefit packages that are offered. And it is super important, guys, when you start looking at the cost of college itself, they say that parents or really savings should pay about 33%. The student should be responsible for about 33%. Grants, financial aid, scholarships, things of that nature should be that third part for the 33%. Number six, we get into the strong insurance coverage. Do you have long-term disability insurance? This could be absolutely detrimental if something happens to you that you have a long-term disability. And also looking at life insurance. How are you going to pay for everything when it comes to the final or end of life? If something should happen to you, do you have money set aside for funeral expenses, which can be incredibly expensive? which is the same with long-term care. If you're looking at 2, 3, 5 years of long-term care, exactly what does it look for when it comes to those future medical expenses? Now, number 7, we get into the tax strategies. This will boost your financial efficiency by crazy amounts if you know how to utilize tax advantage accounts. We are talking about Roth IRAs. Specifically, when you start looking at a Roth IRA, it is after tax money that goes into that account. It grows absolutely tax free. When you take the money out, if you take the money out, it is absolutely tax free. Now, people also use some tax loss strategies, offsetting your gains, minimizing your income with tax harvest loss. Again, consult your tax advisor about doing this before you start trying to do it yourself. Or if you do an incredible amount of research, you can actually do it. You can claim about a $3,000 loss every single year. Sometimes we do it by just selling an asset and taking that loss at a 24% tax rate. You can get a pretty good benefit out of there. And also looking at your deductions and credits when it comes to tax strategies. We are talking about mortgage interest, charitable donations, dependents. If you're itemizing your deductions, if you're like me, just taking that standardized deduction, really doesn't make a big deal about it. And number 8, which is our final one, guys, looking at your income streams. Anytime that you can increase your income streams, you are providing yourself with greater flexibility in the world, negotiating or seeking higher pay in your current role, or looking at consulting, freelancing, monetizing, anything that you can do for a career or a side hustle. Now, for me personally, I do YouTube. We've been doing YouTube for actually a couple years. Great way to supplement income. And with that supplement of income, it is being 100% invested. And even when you start thinking about investment opportunities, real estate, entrepreneurship, digital assets, really diversifying, because if you're stuck to one income stream, if something happens to that income stream, unfortunately, it's going to be incredibly difficult to replace it, even in the very short term. If I could step it up, if something, God forbid, should happen to my job, I can step up my ability to work more, putting out more content and putting out more videos on YouTube, making a really big difference. But looking at new business ventures could also be a possibility. And the final one, financial goals. I know the last one, and this is the bonus one, review your financial goals. We are talking at a minimum on a monthly basis, but looking at your income, your family needs, market conditions, what's going to be coming up. Also looking at the adjustments in the budget. Now, budgets should be done on a monthly basis, knowing exactly where your money is going. Looking at the economic conditions right now with the tariffs, the uncertainty when it comes to the car market, when it comes to groceries. We have cut back on a lot of unnecessary expenses, making sure and redirecting all of those funds for saving it and really investing it in the stock market, building up a lot of wealth that way when we know we're doing some cutbacks to figure out exactly what's going on in the nation with the tariffs and the current president that we have. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.